Dear students, today we will do the embryology of the abdomen continued. So we have done already the diaphragm development. So after the development of the diaphragm, the thoracic cavity is separated from the abdominal cavity. Now we'll take on the next part, that is the development of the gastrointestinal tract. Now as we have already seen that whole of our GAT developed from the, which is the primitive gut, is formed from the endodermal cells lining tube, which is formed from the stomatodium to the proctodium, and it is hanging by the double layered dorsal and the ventral mesentery, which is derived from the intraembryonic mesoderm, which is the result of the folding of the flat embryonic disc into a tubular embryo. So in there, the endoderm goes inside and forms a tube, which is called a primitive gut from the stomatodium to the proctodium, and it is hanging from the mesentery, which is the intra-embryonic coelom. Now this tube is seen with the allantoic diverticulum, which also divided into the umbilical cord, and this primitive gut is divided into midgut, foregut, midgut, and the hindgut, from where the whole of this gastrointestinal tract will develop from this primitive gut with the foregut, midgut, and hindgut. As the gut is developing at the same time, the aorta also start developing in the dorsal part, and it gives rise to the three branches. One is the celiac artery, it goes to the foregut. A superior mesenteric artery goes to the midgut, and the inferior mesenteric artery, it goes to the hindgut. So this is how this endodermal lining tube is the tubular form with the proctodium and the stomatodium here, and this is the foregut, this is the midgut, and this is the hindgut. At the same time, in the dorsal part, the aorta develops, and it gives the three branches to the developing GIT, that is the celiac artery to the foregut, superior mesenteric artery to the midgut, and the inferior mesenteric artery to the hindgut. So this is the tubular form of the embryo that we have already done also. Now the endodermal lining of the primitive gut, it will ultimately form the inner or the mucosa of the whole of the intestinal glands of the intestine, and the endoderm will also give rise to the hepatocytes of the liver, and it also gives rise to the exocrine and the endocrine part of the pancreas also. Now this planknopluric component of the mesoderm, which is around the gut, it will give rise to the submucosa with the blood vessels, the smooth muscles in the wall, that is the outer longitudinal, and the inner circular muscles will be developed from the mesoderm. Serous coat or the outer adventitious coat also develop from the mesoderm, and the visceral peritoneum also develops here. So this primitive gut is hanging from the in the intraembryonic coelom with the help of the dorsal and the ventral mesentery, which is derived from the peritoneum, that is the mesodermal lining of the intraembryonic coelom, and this is the endodermal tube, which is the primitive gut, and this is the splanchnoplury component of the mesoderm, which is surrounding the primitive gut, and this splanchnoplury component of the mesoderm will give rise to the submucosa, outer and the inner circular smooth muscles, and the serous coat of the whole of the intestine, whole of the GIT, and this part of the mesoderm, which is touching the developing gut, will ultimately form the visceral peritoneum, and this dorsal and the ventral part will develop from the mesenteries. So this is the coronal section of the embryo. So in order to understand the whole of the development of the GIT, we have to take three-dimensional picture of the embryo. First is the sagittal view or the lateral view. One is the ventral or the inferior view. Other is the coronal section. Then we can understand the development of the various parts of the GIT. So three-dimensional picture should be in your mind before going into the development. So first, this was the disc we have seen, that this is a embryonic disc which is on the third week will undergo the lateral as well as the craniocaudal folding, and the flat disc becomes a tubular form, and with all these structures present in it. So this is the lateral view or the sagittal section of the embryo. So this view has to be kept in mind. And when we see it from below, this is the inferior view. So this is the inferior view or the ventral view of the same embryo seen from the lower side. So this is the primitive gut from the stomatodium and to the proctodium, divisible into foregut, midgut, and the hindgut part. The third diagram, this is the coronal section of the embryo, that if we cut the embryo in any plane like this, so this is the coronal section, or if we cut the embryo like this from any foregut part or midgut part, so when we cut the embryo in the vertical portion, this, so whatever the picture we will get is this, the ventral section or the coronal section of the primitive gut. So this is the outer part is the somatopleuric mesoderm. So it will form the below the surface ectoderm. It will give rise to the anterior abdominal wall, the lateral abdominal wall, and the posterior abdominal wall. So this somatopleuric component will give rise to the anterior, lateral, and the posterior abdominal wall with all its muscles and the artery, veins, nerves, as well as the bony component, the lumbar vertebra posterior. That is the somatopleuric component. The soma means the body wall. It will give rise to the body wall. Now we will take one by one the derivative of the foregut, midgut, and hindgut. So the foregut will give rise to ultimately the mouth, oral cavity, pharynx, respiratory system, and esophagus we have already done. The stomach and duodenum is the part which derived from the foregut, and the midgut will give rise to the distal half of the duodenum, the jejunum and the ileum, appendix, cecum, ascending colon, and the right two-thirds of the transverse colon. And the hindgut will ultimately give rise to the left one-third of the transverse colon, descending colon, sigmoid colon, rectum, and the upper part of the anal canal up to the pectinate line. So these are the derivative of the primitive gut, that is the foregut, midgut, and hindgut. So we will take one by one. But first we will take the development of the stomach and spleen. Now as we have done the development of the diaphragm, and we have seen that after the development of the formation of the diaphragm, the fourth week, then just above the diaphragm lies the heart, and on either side of the heart lies the lungs, and posteriorly lies the esophagus. So this part is the foregut part which lies in the thorax. So with the descent of the heart in the thorax, after the development of the lungs, the esophagus also elongates to the part of the foregut. So it is derived from the foregut, and the stomach will develop from that part of the foregut which is below the diaphragm. So above the diaphragm, the foregut will give rise to the esophagus, and the part of the foregut now which has came below the diaphragm will give rise to the stomach. Now this stomach, it develops as a fusiform swelling from the foregut part which is below the diaphragm, and it has got two surfaces, right and left. Now the left side grows more faster than the right side due to the different organs they are lying into this area, and this lead to the formation of the lesser curvature on the right side and the greater curvature on the left side. So this is the foregut part which now becomes a stomach, and it has got a fusiform swelling with its right surface and the left surface, and the left surface grows more and right surface grows less, because here are the development of the liver, etc., but there is no any growth here, organ is growing, so this part develops or grows more faster. So this lead to the formation of the greater curvature on the left side, while on the right side it remains less developed, so it becomes smaller, so it becomes the less curvature. At the same time, the right and the left vagus nerve, they are descending from the developing neural tube, and right and left vagus nerve are also lying on the right and left surface of the stomach. Now, the right and left surface, they are in touch with the vagus nerve. Now, in the next part, the stomach rotates anterior posterior direction, and the stomach undergoes now 90-degree clockwise rotation in such a way on the longitudinal axis so that the right side becomes posterior with the vagus nerve, and the left side now comes anterior surface with the left vagus nerve. Now it is called the anterior gastric nerve. So after this, the stomach undergo 90-degree clockwise rotation. So in this clockwise rotation, what happens? The left surface becomes anterior and the right surface becomes posterior because of the 90-degree rotation of the heart of the stomach on the longitudinal axis. So the vagus nerve, which is on the left side, will come on the anterior surface, touching the anterior surface of the stomach, and the right vagus nerve, which is touching the right surface of the stomach after the rotation, becomes posterior. So now these are called the, now they are no longer is called vagus nerve now because they are supplying the stomach. Now they are called the gastric nerves. So the left gastric nerve becomes the anterior gastric nerve, while the right vagus nerve becomes the posterior gastric nerve. It is because of the rotation of the stomach. Now further, the stomach again undergoes the anterior-posterior axis rotation in such a way, so it goes the another rotation after formation of the stomach with the anterior and the posterior surface. So again it undergoes the anterior-posterior rotation in the anterior-posterior axis. Again undergo the rotation. The left side will rotates and it becomes the cardiac end, while the right side of the right end of the stomach, it rotates towards the upper side and goes on the right side and it becomes the pyloric end. So this is the second rotation of the stomach in the anterior posterior axis, in which the esophageal end becomes the left side and the pyloric end becomes on the right side of the midline. So it is because of the adjustment of the stomach due to the, at the same time, due to development of the liver on the right side. So this is the position of the stomach. Now the foregut is held by the dorsal and the ventral mesentery. As we know already, the foregut is having the held by the dorsal and the ventral mesentery, and liver develops in the ventral mesentery, and the ventral mesentery from the liver to the lesser curvature of the stomach becomes the two-layer lesser omentum. And around the liver, it becomes the visceral peritoneum of the liver, and from the Gleason's capsule, and from liver to the anterior abdominal wall becomes the falciform ligament. So this is the stomach developing in the dorsal and the ventral mesentery. In the ventral mesentery, already liver is developing, so there is a very small space at this point. And when the liver develops, the ventral mesentery in which liver was developing, from the lesser curvature to the liver, this part of the lesser mesentery will be called as the lesser omentum, and the ventral mesentery, which is around the liver, become the Gleason's capsule or the visceral peritoneum of the liver. And from the liver to the anterior abdominal wall, this ventral mesentery, now it is called the falciform ligament. So this is what is happening to the lesser ventral mesogastrium or lesser or the ventral mesentery. Similarly, the stomach is also hanging by the dorsal mesentery, with the dorsal mesogastrium, and in this develops the spleen. So again, the part of the dorsal mesentery between the stomach and the diaphragm is called the gastrophrenic ligament, and the part of the dorsal mesentery between the stomach and the spleen is called the gastrosplenic ligament. At the same time, kidney also develops. So the same double fold of the dorsal mesentery between the spleen and the left kidney is called the lienorenal ligament. So this is how the stomach, while developing, is hanging from the dorsal and the ventral mesentery. In the ventral mesentery, the liver develops, and this ventral mesentery then from the anterior abdominal wall to the liver is called falciform ligament, and from the lesser curvature of the stomach to the liver is called named as the lesser omentum, and from the greater omentum from the dorsal mesentery due to the development of the spleen from the greater curvature to the spleen is called the gastrosplenic ligament, and from spleen to the kidney is called the lienorenal ligament. So this is the coronal section showing the fate of the ventral and the dorsal mesogastrium or the mesentery. Now the part of the dorsal mesentery which is hanging down from the greater curvature downward from the greater curvature is named as the greater omentum. So this is how we have seen that all these ligaments around the stomach and the liver and the spleen, they are all derived from the ventral and the dorsal mesenteries. Now, after seeing the stomach, now we do the development of the spleen. As we know, the dorsal mesentery, the spleen develops as the multiple mesodermal tissue collections, and subsequently their fusion will form the mesodermal inner region, and this is the reason why the spleen is having a splenic notch on its anterior border, because it developed from the different lobular development fusion. So this explains the splenic notch formation. So this is the how the ligaments are related to the spleen, stomach, and the posterior part. Now, due to the formation of these ligaments from the dorsal mesentery, or due to the postural changes or the rotation of the stomach in the clockwise, in the vertical as well as in the anterior-posterior direction, a small cavity is created behind the stomach, which is called the omental bursa or the lesser sac, or it is also called the stomach bed, which lies posterior to this. And in this posterior bed or the stomach bed lies the pancreas, the left kidney, celiac vessels, the left crus of the diaphragm, and the splenic vessels from the stomach bed. So this lesser curvature is created. So this lesser sac now, as we know, it communicates with the greater sac through the epiploic foramen or foramen of Winslow, which lies behind the right free border of the lesser omentum, which is containing the portal triad in it. So this is the right free border of the lesser omentum. So behind this lies the foramen of Winslow or the epiploic foramen. So behind the stomach and the lesser omentum and the liver, here lies the lesser curvature is created because of the positional changes of the stomach, and this is the through this lesser sac is communicated with the greater sac or the rest of the abdominal cavity. So this is the embryological basis of the development of the lesser sac and the various ligaments around the stomach. Now, regarding the anomalies of the stomach, as we know, the pyloric stenosis is the condition in which it is due to the hypertrophy of the inner circular muscles of at the pylorus that lead to the stenosis, and the patient present with the projectile vomiting in the newborn babies after taking food, and no food can go beyond the pylorus, so patient come with the distension of the stomach. Similarly, there is a hiatus hernia we already done in the diaphragm also. So whenever the esophageal opening of the diaphragm is bigger, then the stomach may go into the thorax, and it is the cause of the various type of the hiatus hernia. Then there may be duplication of the stomach, or there may be prepyloric septum may be there inside, or the stomach may be the hourglass type of thing. Now regarding the anomalies of the spleen, ectopic splenic tissue may be found anywhere. It may be found near the hilus of this spleen, or near the tail of the pancreas, or in the lienorenal ligament, or in the gastrosplenic ligament, or along the splenic artery. So a lobulated spleen may also be found. It is because of the incomplete lobular fusion is failed, and the lobulated spleen may be anomaly with this. Next, we do the development of the duodenum. As we know, this also developed from the upper half is developed from the foregut. So it is developed from the caudal part of the foregut and the cephalic part of the midgut, and the junction of this lies between the hepatic bud emergence. Due to the rotation of the stomach, as we know, the pylorus and the duodenum part next to this become the C-shaped loop, and the head of the pancreas growing in it rapidly. So it causes the shift of the duodenum on the right side, as the pylorus also goes on the right side. And the ventral mesentery, it falls on the right side, and it comes to lie on the posterior abdominal wall, and it gets fused with the posterior abdominal wall, and this process is called the zygosis. And because of this, the duodenum becomes the retroperitoneal structure with the developing pancreas in its C-shaped concavity. Now in the second month, the duodenum lumen is obliterated due to the proliferation of the endodermal cells and its, but sooner they are canalized. Now, as the foregut is supplied by the celiac artery, so midgut is supplied by the superior mesenteric artery. So duodenum has got dual arterial supply because it developed from the foregut as well as from the hindgut part and the midgut part. So anomalies of the duodenum, the duodenum atresia is due to the non-canalization of the duodenum in the distal part, or duodenal stenosis may be there, and due to stenosis, what happens, there is a dilatation of the duodenum and also dilatation of the stomach. This is give the double bubble appearance in the X-ray finding, and a diverticulum may be the seen from the duodenum part also. Now next we take the development of the liver and the gallbladder. Now in the middle of the third week of the intrauterine life, the hepatic bud develops as a endodermal outgrowth from the junction of the foregut and the midgut, and it grows rapidly in the ventral mesentery or ventral mesogastrium towards the septum transversum, and the caudal part of the septum transversum, as we know, of the mesoderm, which give rise to the connective tissue, the Kupffer cells, and the blood vessels, and the hemopoietic tissue of the liver. So they are all derived from the mesoderma, and from the septum of the septum transversum will give rise to these parts of the liver, while the hepatic bud near the it reaches near the septum transversum. It goes into the septum transversum and divides into the mesoderm of the septum transversum into the large two buds, that is the pars hepatica, and a smaller part that is called the pars cystica. Now the pars hepatica proliferates rapidly into the septum transversum mesoderm, and it forms the long hepatic cords which invade the vitelline and the umbilical veins and form the hepatic sinusoids and the hepatic cells or the hepatocytes. They are endodermal in origin, and these cords will form the long chains of the hepatocytes, that is the endodermal in origin, and then the walls of the bile canaliculi, they are also laid down, and they are also endodermal in origin. Now the hepatic artery also invades the liver, and it communicates with the sinusoidal system of the liver. So this is the developing stomach, and this is the hepatic bud, which is divisible into two parts. Larger one is part hepatica, and smaller is called the pars cystica, and it develops from the part of the midway between the foregut and the starting of the midgut. And the pars hepatica, it grows into the mesoderm of the septum transversum, and it divides very rapidly, and it forms the hepatic cords like this, and these cords, they are branched and they give rise to the hepatocytes. And the pars cystica, which is smaller, will ultimately give rise to the gall bladder. And this is the starting of the liver bud from here. Now the mesoderm of the septum transverse from the liver capsule also, and the ventral mesentery from anteabdominal wall to the liver from the falciform ligament and the Gleason's capsule, and the bare area and the part of the liver which develops from the septum transversum. And from the same septum transversum, we have seen that how the diaphragm also develops. So the connecting area is called the bare area of the liver, and there is no peritoneum which is present. And capsule from here, or the ventral mesogastrium, is reflected from the bare area on the right side as the superior and the inferior coronary ligaments and right triangular ligament, and on the left side from the left lobe of the liver as the left triangular ligaments. Now, as liver enlarges in the septum transversum, its connection to the gut narrows down and from the hepatic bile duct system. And pars cystica becomes the gallbladder with the extrahepatic biliary apparatus developed from here, and cystic duct which joins the hepatic duct to form now the common bile duct. So this was the, as the liver is developing, so its connection, developing liver connection and to the gut becomes narrows down, and this narrow portion from the cystic duct and the hepatic ducts, they commonly form the common bile duct which opens into the foregut and the midgut junction here in the second part of the duodenum. Now, regarding the anomalies of the liver and the gallbladder, radial lobe is the one of the, there is a tongue-shaped lobe may be found in the right lobe of the liver, or there may be variation in the various lobes of the liver may be found in the anomalies, or there may be a polycystic liver disease may be there. It may be associated with the polycystic disease of the kidney also in cases. So when there is a lack of communication between the sinusoidal system and between the hepatocyte and the central vein is there, so this is the cause of the polycystic liver disease may be there. Then there is a intrahepatic biliary atresia may be there, and there may be non-development of the biliary system in the liver, that is the intrahepatic. Then there is a congenital hepatic fibrosis may be there, which is the cause of the portal hypertension in the newborn babies. There may be gallbladder may be associated with the anomalies like the double gallbladder, septate gallbladder, or intrahepatic gallbladder, or the floating gallbladder, or there may be no development of the gallbladder may not be there, that is the agenesis, or the gallbladder cystic duct is very small, is called the sessile gallbladder, or there may be Hartmann's pouch may develop near the cystic duct or near the neck of the gallbladder, and there is a cap-like structure may be found near the fundus of the gallbladder. Thank you.